Welcome to the Arsenal Tottenham Fan Podcast. I'm Cal Wood, the happiest gooner this side of London, and I'm joined by my nemesis and very sad Tottenham Hotspur fan, Rick Nelson.
Extremely sad.
How are you doing today?
Oh, this is not the start to the week I was looking for, Cal.
That is correct. What a difference a year makes. Just night and day performance from
Oh,
both teams, really.
yeah, really. Yeah, opposite ends of the scale. Truly. Without a doubt.
So we're going to go through some of the important moments of the game, talk a little bit about that, try to discuss them in terms of how they affected the outcome. After that, we'll talk a little bit about player of the match. We'll go through some stats, and then we'll try to sort out what the game and the result mean for both Tottenham and Arsenal. And then we'll look at the next fixtures coming up for each team. How's that sound, Rick?
Sounds good, I think.
So, in the opening moments of the game, it did not look like we were going to have same old Tottenham's first half dreadful performance.
No.
Because in the opening minutes, they were quite bright.
Yeah. It just didn't last. No, I thought the same thing. I thought, hey, this looks kind of promising. You know, I look at the lineup first of all, and I saw that Sarr was in there, which I was happy about because I think the kid, he's a good player.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a promising talent. I think he'll be around for a while. I was a little bit dubious about Sessegnon being in the lineup, just because he hasn't played with confidence. Big game. And it proved to be a stretch too far for him anyway.
Well, I think in the second minute, you could see why that Conte put him on. And we're going to be referencing our preview podcast a lot because a lot of the things that we mentioned in that one came to fruition. But one of the things that we talked about was Tottenham trying to get in behind Arsenal's fullbacks as they went forward. And Sessegnon does have speed on the wings. And in the second minute, Arsenal had the ball in Tottenham's half. And Tottenham won the ball back, and it was a quick 1-2, and Sessegnon got played in behind Ben White, who was called up the pitch. And it resulted in a really good break. And it was Son. So the way that they did it, Son was on the touchline. He came inside. The fullback played it to Son. Son played it one time out to the touchline to Sessegnon, who ran behind White into acres of space. Nothing came out of the move, but it was certainly dangerous, and I think an indication of how Conte wanted to use Sessegnon.
Yeah, but fundamentally there's an issue here. So, right, it didn't pan out like that. And there's obviously, as the weeks go on, we're seeing more and more issues, right? It's almost like after that game, I sat there for a while, stunned, right? Not hugely stunned because I don't think the outcome was totally unexpected, right? It's not like I could go like, wow, I didn't see that coming, right? Probably the best, unfortunately, the best team probably in Europe right now, right? Beating us.
They're playing really good.
Yeah. But more reflective on the point that something's fundamentally wrong at Tottenham on the pitch, right? On the business, off the pitch, on the business side, it's the most well-run club on the planet next to Bayern Munich. Right?
Well, I don't know, but we'll certainly better than Chelsea. We'll say that.
Yeah. That's not hard. And it's almost like, I don't know, like we need a year in the wilderness to sort it out. You know what I mean?
Well, back when we started this podcast, we talked a little bit about, and maybe we should get more back to the game and talk about this at the end. But we talked about Arsenal and how they went about building the team, and Liverpool went through it where they finished outside of European places a couple years in a row. Arsenal finished outside of European places a couple years in a row. And for teams, it's cyclical.
Yeah.
You have your group of players when they're in their prime, you get as much out of them as you can, but they don't stay in their prime forever. And it's cyclical. And I think we'll talk about a little bit more about this at the end, but I think Tottenham is, in a crossroads in their cycle.
Yeah, I agree. But for some of the things here that stood out for me, we want to take a look at the first goal, right?
Well, I hate to keep referencing the preview podcast, but that's going to be a running theme through this. Is we talked about how poor a year Lloris has had.
Yeah.
And he has been so poor. And we talked about that the biggest advantage that Arsenal had, even though they had advantages all over the pitch, the biggest advantage was between the six.
Yep. Yeah, and that was borne out today. I mean, it stood out a mile, the difference between the goalies. It was night and day. Lloris had a couple of good saves.
He did.
But all in all, you can't win games when the goalie plays like that.
Well, you can't, because and it wasn't just on that goal. It wasn't just Lloris. Sessegnon, what was he doing?
Yeah, he wasn't even. He didn't even have Saka in his vision. Sessegnon was looking up the pitch,
right,
and Saka was like to his left, in front of him.
That's right. And so Saka gets in behind, and that's okay. That's going to happen. But, Sessegnon just gave him the inline.
Yeah, you can't have that. You can't stand off of a player like Saka.
That's right.
It's not even standing off him, Cal. He wasn't even like aware of him almost.
Well,
like he's looking the other way. He's looking up the pitch, and Saka's over here.
That's right. That's right. He totally lost him for the ball over the top, and give Partey credit for seeing the opening, and because he just looked up, saw it, played a great pass to him. But Sessegnon still, again, I think one of the reasons that he's on that side is he has the speed,
the pace,
to make speed. You can outrun a mistake if you're really fast, and he outran that mistake. But when he got in position, he didn't turn square to Saka in a place where he could stop the cross or the ball going at goal. He just gave him the touchline or the end line and said, run to it and either shoot or cross it back. If a defender, if he gets across, defenders are taught, or at least when I played, they were taught, you run to the near post. So your man's got behind you. Okay. You don't chase your man. You go to the near post and then play him from the near post out. And Sessegnon doesn't do that. If he plays him from the near post out, Saka's going to beat him on the dribble, but that's okay, because then that makes Saka change his dribble pattern, and a double team can come over. You can stop him enough to allow another defender to come over. But Sessegnon doesn't do that. Gives him a free whack right at Lloris. Actually, even worse, he tips it, with the edge of his boot and changes the direction and totally catches Lloris by surprise. But even with that, if Lloris just doesn't touch it with his hands, it's not a goal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bad goal. It's a goalie mistake. I mean,
And
Could have
before
done
that,
better with it. I mean, there's no excuse really. I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
and,
I
and
tried
bef-
looking at it thinking, well, a little slight deflection, a little bit. No, you have got to deal with it.
that's a fact. And even before that, if you remember, again, back to the preview podcast, I mentioned that Arsenal just may kick it long because of Lloris and Dyer and Romero to a certain extent at the way that they play the ball with their feet. And, Conte is a big believer in it. So Tottenham is going to play it short. They play it short a lot more than you would think a team would that has the offensive weapons and counterattack.
Yeah,
But that's what they do. And you almost gave up one to Nketiah. If you remember, Lloris
yeah,
took a bad touch on it.
yeah.
Nketiah ran him down and forced a bad pass out of Longole, I think, that Martinelli intercepted, and he played an overhead kick to Nketiah. And Nketiah just had to wait for that ball to come down. It took a bounce, and it took forever for it to come down.
Lloris redeemed himself a little bit with that save, but he put himself in that position to begin with.
Well, that's right. And, Nketiah, Lloris was a bit fortunate, and Nketiah was a bit unfortunate because it took a second for the ball, it bounced, and for it, by the time that it came down, Lloris had time to get in position and shut down the shot. Had that overhead kick, been a little shorter, and Nketiah would have taken it on the volley, Lloris would have been in sections and sevens, so he wouldn't even
Yeah.
been in the goal
But
to prevent that one.
how many times have I said on this podcast? I, I don't even know how many times. We are so bad at playing out from the back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it does my nerves watching it. I mean,
Well,
it's terrible.
in my notes on the game before the goal came in the, I think, 14th minute. In the 8th minute, I've got a note that says end to end. You wanted Tottenham to play in Arsenal's end, and Tottenham was not dropping back into the 4-5-1.
No,
Tottenham came to that match to play, and it was end to end, and it was it was a great match to watch there early because Tottenham had the ball and were going forward with it. Arsenal had the ball and were going forward with it. I mean, the game was kind of stretched. Even that goal, that goal was because the first goal was because the game was stretched. And, Party, he might have been 20 yards away from from your fullbacks when he played that pass. I mean, you were pushing up, we were pushing up. The two fullbacks were like within 30, the two groups of center backs and fullbacks were like within 30 yards of each other, pretty much that entire opening stanza.
but it was still the same. I mean, I'm going to be negative today in many aspects because there were some positives from the game. I'll get to that, but really, and it's still raw. It's only a few hours old yet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but um,
So I have a question for you.
yeah, go ahead then.
So would you say the biggest positive of the second half was when the internet stream went down?
For a minute, yeah, it was. For, I went out and made myself a cup of tea.
I tweeted out wondering if Hugo Lloris was the technology director for Tottenham.
Well, I don't, I don't want to be. I don't want to any premonitions the other day, but I think it was Friday or Saturday that I tweeted out on the Twitter with an excerpt from the previous podcast when we were talking about Lloris, and my headline in there was "Will Lloris drop the ball?"
Unfortunately, he did it over the line.
My own worst enemy, you know.
Yeah, you could say it's okay to drop it, just don't drop it in the goal.
Yeah, what was it? Who said this? Patton or MacArthur or somebody said, "I found the enemy, and it's us."
That's right, and they
Right?
are us.
And they are
That's right.
us.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Lloris certainly was on in that particular instance, and with that goal, and Conte referenced it in the post game press conference, that took all chances of you going into the 4-5-1 out.
Yeah, absolutely.
As soon as that, it was on, and I think from my perspective, I have to give Arsenal a lot of credit because while Tottenham did have a pretty good stretch up, maybe the next, 5 minutes up until the internet or the stream went down. After that, Arsenal controlled the second half.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And it in a big game like that on the road with a young team, and we're like, is this young team really a championship contender? You know, that is a moment where a lot of teams that lack belief drop back and try to protect that one goal lead.
Sure.
And Arsenal did not even think about dropping back to protect that lead, and they kept attacking.
Yeah, well, I agree. From our perspective, it was always going to be what Tottenham side turns up. Well, the same one turned up, the exact
Well,
same one, the exact same one that's turned up for the last freaking 15 games.
Yeah, it did.
But this time, the difference being that mediocre in the first half, yeah, slight improvement in the second half, but not good enough. You're not pegging back 2 goals on these guys.
Well,
This ain't Brentford, right?
well, that is for sure. I mean, Arsenal has an 8-point lead at the top of the table, and it's for a reason.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. Yeah.
it ain't no fluke. And just 10 minutes after the goal, Party hits the post with a volley
Oh my god.
that, I mean, it would have beaten any keeper in the world.
Well, when that left his foot, I was like, no, serious, because I thought, not again, right?
Yeah,
As soon as it left his foot, I screamed that.
That's too funny. Did you see? The video of the two Tottenham fans hugging each other behind the
No,
goal? The
no,
ball's flying at the goal, and they're hugging each other in total fear that that thing was going in.
good lord.
What a strike! And and before that, Martinelli had a really good opportunity to score too.
Yeah,
So Arsenal was pushing their advantage and really going for the second goal. Um, you know, Romero got a yellow in the 34th minute. Martinelli kind of drew it a little bit. I mean, I've seen Romero get some yellow cards that he deserved a lot more than that one. But he got one there, and then a minute later, Odegaard scores, and a great shot, a great move by Arsenal.
where did that start from?
It started from just outside the penalty box.
It was Lloris.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, he wasn't great for he wasn't great for the save either.
No. I mean, it started with Lloris and finished with Lloris, right?
Yeah,
Kane couldn't get to the ball. 2 or 3 passes later, Odegaard, which again, what we spoke about last week was, I think I said, if he gets space and he's got time to play, that's bad. And
right.
he had a ton, he had acres.
He did, and you have to want. We talked again to preview podcast about maybe Conte playing Skip in that spot, and he opted for Sarr, his first Premier League start.
Yeah.
And Sarr was nowhere to be found when
at that point,
when
I still
Odegaard
think
drifted
Sarr had a
inside.
good game. Sarr was probably one of the positives out of it, but at that point, you're right.
Well, Højbjerg's up the field. So when you're playing a double pivot, both of you can't go up the field because there's going to be acres in behind you.
Yeah, right.
And that's what happened. Sarr went up the field, and when he did, Odegaard just slid into that spot, and Sarr was 15 yards behind him, and there was no way Sarr was going to make up that space.
No.
And it was wide open right there, and give Odegaard credit for tucking it in the corner. It had good space on it, and sometimes that bouncing ball is difficult for a keeper because when they lay out on the ground, those bounces can kind of take it over. But I mean, it had power, but it was from 30 yards.
Yeah.
I thought Lloris was a little late in getting over there.
It's one of those. It's one of those things. One of those things too. And I've said this in the past. Like goalkeepers, they've got no leeway for anything, right?
For
You know what
sure.
I mean? A
For
striker
sure.
can miss a shot, and people will be like, "Ooh, that was a close one," right?
That's right.
A
That's right.
goalkeeper, a goalkeeper mishandles the ball, and you got 50,000 people calling him a wanker, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Yeah.
So I think with everything that's gone on with Lloris prior to the game, with pundits and the press having a go at him, um, retiring from international football, when taking nothing away from Odegaard's goal, then it's easier to zero in and still say he should have done better, which he should have done, but for us to still make more of it
Mm-hmm.
than it really was anyway. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh, absolutely. And, Romero really lets him down because he's one-on-one with Romero. Romero is right on him, squared up. And Romero does the thing where he puts his hands behind his back and then he turns his body sideways.
Yeah,
I
he
hate
does that
that.
all the time. Yeah,
I hate that. I
yeah,
mean, that's what you want to do when a guy's getting ready to take a shot is make your body smaller,
yeah.
and that's what he does. And, you know, I, Romero's a tough guy and, take it in the stomach,
Yeah, simple as
you
that.
know,
Yeah, I
I
agree.
mean,
Yeah.
and he doesn't, he makes himself smaller and that hurts. That hurts Lloris as well.
Today's the day to rip on Tottenham, Cal. I'm right with you today. Come on, let's
Well,
do it.
I mean, I'm just, I don't mean to
I'm going to
this. I'm not.
agree, Cal. I'm going to agree with you.
I know, but I play defender, and when a defender does that, it just roasts my grits, even if it's a Tottenham player,
Yeah.
because that is just so poor.
Hey, let me
Um,
ask you this: Why no yellow card for Partey for the handball?
because Craig Paulson loves Arsenal, I guess.
Freaking right, he does.
You know,
Partey's
I,
hailing a London cab. Taxi in, right? He's got
I
his
don't
hands
know,
right out like
but
this. What
that
is going on?
it's a miracle. I mean, that was a yellow card all day long.
Nothing. Not
No,
even.
it's.
Not even
I
like.
mean,
Hey, I saw that.
granted, the replay makes it look worse than it is because the replay's in slow motion and all
Yeah.
that. But when how that's not a yellow card is shocking to me.
So
Not that
deliberate.
it had any effect on the game, but
No, not at
um,
all. I'm just saying
yeah. But it was
Clausen did nothing to warm himself to us. I'll tell you that.
nah. Well, that's for sure. And so from after that goal was scored, Arsenal got the ball back and they passed it for 2 minutes. They were passing it around so much without Tottenham getting a touch.
That's not unusual for us. That we do that, Cal. We let people do that.
I had to go back and look at it.
Yeah.
And to me, it looked like Tottenham lost some belief in those moments. Now, they came back out in the second half and showed some belief. But the last 10 minutes ish of the second half, at least until that corner kick, they looked like they lost some belief, some confidence, because Arsenal, like I said, they passed it around for 2 minutes. Tottenham got the ball, had it for like 3 passes. Arsenal got it again and passed it around for another 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And Arsenal, I mean, of course they would have taken an opportunity to score, but they were just going into, this is how we control the game now. We get the ball, we pass it around, and What one thing that makes Arsenal so impressive, especially in those things, is the way that they execute triangles and move. When one of their player has the ball, other players run to him to give him a pass. And Zinchenko is absolutely fabulous at it. Zinchenko moves all over the pitch, and he finds a way when the opposing team goes to double team a person with the ball on his side. He finds the spot to be for the square pass. And Arsenal was so good at that, and it's so easy when you're playing a match to want to rest when you have the ball because you can't rest when the other team has the ball.
Right.
You want to rest when your team has the ball. But Arsenal does not do that. They continue to move when they have the ball, and it enables them to keep possession because they're able to keep triangles moving, and they keep overflows going and overloads in certain areas so that the player with the ball always has a pass. And as you know from playing, the worst thing is when you have the ball, the defender's closing in on you, and you look up and there's three guys and they're not moving at all.
Yeah.
You're like, come on, guys. Freaking A, man. I'm sitting here, I need to play a pass, and you guys are just standing there.
Yeah.
And Arsenal's really good about continuing to move, and that is why they possess the ball. So you want to talk about the scrum at the end? What a great save Ramsdale made on the header from Kane.
Yeah.
I mean, Kane with a great shot, bottom corner, and give Ramsdale credit for seeing it. One thing that Lloris didn't do is he didn't anticipate some of the goals. And in that one, Ramsdale did a good job of anticipating where Kane would put it. Because if he didn't, that's a goal. If Ramsdale's in a normal position where he's trying to guard both posts, that's a goal because he can't get to that. That ball was in the corner.
Yeah, that's what Kane does so well, like playing off the shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
And we already mentioned this, really. Ramsdale's the difference. Your two goals, obviously, but he was the difference in the game.
Yeah.
Hate to say it, obviously, but he was.
Yeah. Zinchenko gave the ball away and then wasn't great defending the cross coming in. And Kane made a great shot. Give Ramsdale all the credit in the world for getting over there and defending it. And then on the corner, the ball comes out to Højbjerg, and Højbjerg dives as bad as I've ever seen a player dive.
Well, I'm watching it with Saliba, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know what to make of it at first, other than the camera then went on the referee and he's pointing to the spot.
That's what I thought.
And I thought, yes, nice, great time to get a penalty.
That's what I thought. And in all honesty, I see Højbjerg on the ground holding his leg, and I'm like, well, he got whacked.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Because you don't think of Højbjerg as the diver faking an injury guy.
No.
But
I thought it was a penalty just because the camera went straight on the ref.
Me too.
And he's pointing to the box, and I thought, oh, this is brilliant. That's a perfect time to get a goal back.
Yeah, well, I didn't think that, but I thought for sure it was that he was calling a penalty, and but once I saw it on replay, it was actually kind of hilarious.
Yeah,
because it was a bad dive, and we'll go ahead and talk about this now. Romero went sliding in on Xhaka in the second half. Didn't touch him.
Xhaka was looking to get him sent off, man.
I know. And I made a note after that one. I was like, the game's important when Højbjerg and Xhaka both dive.
Yeah, yeah, for
I
sure.
mean, the two are the toughest guys in the Premier League, and they're both rolling around on the
Yeah.
ground like somebody broke their leg
And
when they didn't
my,
even touch them.
even my reaction to that was even then when I realized that Shaka was, you know, was performing the dark arts, I just shrugged my shoulders. It's a North London derby, you know, as Tony Soprano would say. Forget about it, you know, forget about it.
That's right. That's right. So Arsenal goes in with the 2-goal lead. Were you thinking that you had us just where you wanted us?
I said to my son, the good news here is we're going to come out all guns a blazing in the second half. Yeah, well,
That
that's the hope that Tottenham fans have now. It's like we don't care if we're 2-0 down. We're coming out in the second half. And for about 10 minutes there in that second half, I thought we were in with half a chance.
well, you
You
did.
know,
Kulishevsky
but
came to life. You
that's
know,
the key, right?
he
It's
was
like,
missing in the first half, and
what
in the
the hell?
second
Where are
half,
you in the first half? What is going on here, Cal? Look, Conte said in prior games, I don't tell them to play like that. Okay, well, then there's something fundamentally wrong if you're admitting that, because then they are undermining your authority by going out there and playing like that, not once in a while, but every game.
every match.
If it was like once in a blue moon, you could say, I don't tell them to play like that. And
Hmm.
you could be like, fair enough.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I said in the podcast before, why are none of these reporters saying, yeah, but aren't they undermining your authority by doing this week in, week out if you're telling them not to do that?
Uh
And
huh.
if that's the case, why aren't you coaching them out of that?
Uh huh.
Doesn't make sense.
Well, that's right.
Doesn't make sense, you know?
That's right.
Because we're a
But
team. It's just that we're a team of moments, and you won't even make top four if you're going to keep playing with just when you're going to have glimpses of greatness or whatever.
right. Well, you know that, like you say, that first 10 minutes, you really came out with intent, and I think the reason that you were dangerous is Kulishevsky was getting
Kulusevski,
on
yeah,
the ball,
of course, yeah,
and Conte must have said something in the dressing room about let's get Kulishevsky on the ball. Um, he had a really good opportunity in the 48th minute and kicked it over the bar. But it would have, had it been on frame, it would have had Ramsdale
hey,
beat.
you can put me on a retainer, right? And I'll call the dressing room at half time. I don't need 20 million a year to just say, Antonio, give the ball to Kulisevsky. 500 grand a year. That's all I need, boys. That's all I'll take. Right.
That's right.
Put me on a retainer. I mean, give him the freaking ball.
That's right. And, you know, a minute later, he plays Kane in. He plays a really nice ball to Kane. And Kane takes another really good shot, and Ramsdale makes a fantastic save
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah. Well,
And then, you know, 2 minutes later was the kick save that he made on Sessegnon. And, you know, I know that we, you know, talked about some of the thing defensively that Sessegnon did poorly, but in that instance, he got in behind, and that shot was in the corner. He really made, you know, he made at a tight angle, he made that shot across, or tried to make the shot across Ramsdale, and he was able to get his left leg out there and deflect the ball wide.
yeah. Yeah, I think could somebody else have done better with that? I don't know. It was a good save. Again, I'm not blaming Sessegnon. He got himself into a great position. It was a good shot. It was on
Mhm.
target. Again, the difference was man between sticks. Hate to keep
Yeah.
saying it, but it was.
Yeah. And, you know, in that, like you say,
That's the
that
Cal. That's the difference, right? When you're a goalkeeper having a good season, everybody's going to say Ramsdale's great. If Lloris was having that season and it's the same scenario against Odegaard, 99% of the pundits out there will be saying, well, that's Odegaard. There's not much you're going to do to save that one.
well, yeah, you know, that
Psychological, right?
yeah, I think that's a fair comment. When you give up a goal like he did early in the game, you're going to open yourself up. I mean, give him credit. He's not the keeper that he was, but to his credit, he did not go into a shell and and play scared or whatever. He still played as relatively well the rest of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, he
It's
wasn't.
hard for, like I've said before, if a striker's not playing well, you can get on his case, but then that striker starts scoring a few goals, everybody backs off. When a goalie has bad games, but then has a couple of good games mixed in with some clangers, you're not getting back on track
Hmm.
because you're a goalie. It's totally different.
Hmm.
Totally different. It's a totally different gig.
Yeah, that's right. I wrote in my notes during that phase that one thing that Tottenham was doing during that first 10 minutes of the second half is that they were moving the ball and moving themselves a lot quicker.
Quicker. Yeah. Yeah.
They were moving the ball quick, even on throw ins. They were running, grabbing the ball on the throw in, chunking it in. Uh, Son took a corner kick where he put the ball. I think it was Son. It might have been somebody else, but just put the ball down and just played it sideways to somebody else. And I mean, he just grabbed it, put it down, kicked it, and they were playing right there. Everything was quick. And I think that is how Tottenham need to play. They need to play like their hair's on fire.
Yeah, but there's
Everything has.
but you're right, right? So, and we, oh God, we're going to say this again. We've discussed this before. When we move the ball quicker, it's a different team.
Yeah. And
But when we sit back and we play sideways football, put our foot on the ball, or somebody makes a run and we think, shall I pass it to him? No, I'm going to wait. Right? I've said before, either that's the player being super cautious or the coach saying, don't you dare. You keep that ball. Don't you play that fancy long pass. Do you know what I'm saying?
well, and I also put in my notes there playing more direct. I think I think what has made Arsenal, one thing that has made a difference in Arsenal this year is we have done a fantastic job of playing possession football with a directness about it. We are not hesitant to go direct to play the ball over the top. The first goal, Party whacks it over the top to Saka in behind. We will play. It took 3 passes for us to go from just outside our penalty box to Odegaard taking the shot at the top of your penalty box.
Yeah.
One thing that Arteta has learned, and how he's learned it, I don't know, but this is a basketball fundamental as well, and that if you move the ball slowly up the pitch, or in basketball, you walk the ball up the court, you give the defensive team time to set up, and it is a lot more difficult to score. Possess it in the back and then whack it long and try to run it down and catch the defense when they're running back toward their own penalty box. And Arsenal has done a fantastic job of being solid at the back possession wise and then moving it quick from the forward line, from the midfield into the forwards. Like we're not necessarily trying to score goals out of 25 passes anymore. We're scoring goals out of 3 passes.
Yeah.
And I think that is the way to play modern football, because if you give a defense time to set up, it's so much more difficult to score. And as I saw Tottenham, especially in the first half, trying to pass the ball around the back, I was saying, why?
Yeah. Makes no sense. Well, that defensive shape was terrible. You
You
know,
know?
I mean, we have an Italian coach and our defense is a shambles.
Yeah. Yeah.
Simple as
I,
that. And
yeah.
I'm not knocking. I'm not on the bandwagon of Conte out. That's not where I'm going. He's. I still believe he's the guy to take us where we need to be eventually. Um, for whatever reason, it's not gelling right now. We've got injuries. I know that there's excuses, and the players are not gelling. When you look at an Arsenal and a Man United and a Newcastle, something's clicked,
Mm-hmm.
right? You can
Mm-hmm.
see it, right? It's clicked. Just like when
Mm-hmm.
you look at Man City right now, good as they are, something's off.
Yeah.
Just a
Yeah.
tad. It's just a little, but it's not the Man City, right?
Right.
And then you look at Man U, you look at Arsenal, and you look at Newcastle, and you go, "Yeah, that it's all fallen into place."
Mm-hmm.
And you look at Tottenham, and it's all falling to pieces.
Well, it sure is. And, Tottenham right now is, I don't want to say you're in free fall,
Nah,
but
nah.
they are, they are definitely some issues. And in this particular game, it looked to me like, Conte's kind of trying to put some, you know, put round holes in or round pegs in square holes. And, you know, uh, so one of the notes that I made is that from the last 9 games, Tottenham has 10 points. What your first, I don't know, first 8 games or something, you were undefeated or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. First
yeah.
7, 8 games, and you've taken 10 points from the last 9 matches. And those first games, we you played 5-4-1 and counterattacked out of the 5-4-1, and you were really hard to score against. I don't see you playing much 5-4-1 anymore.
No.
I mean, I know that that's a boring way to play, and you got wholly criticized for it. But maybe that's the way this Tottenham team needs to
Well,
play, and kick it long and let the wingbacks chase it.
the very fact that you're saying that, and the very fact that everybody's having this conversation, shows you that Tottenham are a little bit lost at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like a company that's got a new CEO that's taking over, and you're trying to rebrand somewhat, right? And you're trying to find who you are, right? And what's that sweet spot? And
Mm-hmm.
we haven't got it yet. It's not there yet. I still
Well,
think Conte's the guy to get it, but it's going to be that build from starting at the back. We're going to need a goalie in the summer,
for sure,
right?
for sure.
And then add to that defense, right? To the midfield, and even when you look up front, we need another striker, right? There is another
Yeah,
striker needed up front.
yeah. Gonna be hard to get that. But you know, to talk about Arsenal for a second, in the
All right.
74th minute, in the 74th minute, I made a note that Nketiah is tired, and he was gassed at that moment. And we don't have any backup there. We almost don't have any backup for our forward for our 3 forwards. And we have to figure out a way to do that. Eddie had a great game. He didn't get a goal. He had a couple good half chances that kind of just didn't fall. He had one really good opportunity in the second half where Xhaka played him in with a really good pass, and his first touch just totally let him down. It was one of those balls that came in about knee, thigh high, and he got his right foot up, but he just didn't really take it down very well. And with the bad touch, it gave Lloris time to cut his angle off. But other than that, he had a really good game. He gives us a lot of pressing, and he really occupies center backs like we talked about in the preview. He had a really nice game, but we are going to have to figure out a way to get somebody on in that position, just like y'all are, to give him a break.
Yeah.
And like y'all, I think what we need to do is find a wide player that can also play in the center. Like, you're not going to be able to go out and get a center forward that's a center forward because nobody's going to come in to play behind Harry Kane. Or at least nobody that's any good. What you can do is find a wide player and tell him he's going to be a wide player because there's plenty of minutes.
Yeah, what we need is a James Ward-Prowse because we can't. Our free kicks are terrible. That's what we need.
Well,
Even with a
you
set piece specialist on the books now, that's the
well,
worst thing that we're at is
well,
free kicks.
you mentioned that. I mean, your midfield isn't so great that he also couldn't contribute as a midfielder.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Southampton's going nowhere. I mean, they're going to the championship.
Yeah, in some way, yeah, it's not anywhere good. Yeah,
So he's not going to want any part of that. So he'll probably be available.
yeah, yeah. Richarlison, I mean, Richarlison's great backup, and when he come on today, I was wondering, when are the subs coming on? Give him a chance. I didn't expect much of him. I mean,
And you got exactly what you expected.
absolutely, yeah. It was 20 minutes for him to come on and get some legs under him for a bit.
Yeah,
That's
and
about it, really.
not do shit with the ball,
Yeah,
but
nothing.
do a lot of shit
He
off
fell
the
over a
ball.
couple of times, though. He fell over a couple of times. Hey, we've got to laugh at
Yeah,
ourselves because that's all we got right now.
yeah. I mean, again, I'm just not a big Richarlison fan. I don't think he's that good um, to begin with, and I mean, he was center forward of a Brazil team that went out in the quarters, and his act at the end of the game with Ramsdale was disgraceful.
Yeah.
And
Ramsdale's winding him up a little bit too. But
of course he is. Of
yeah,
course he is. But he got wound up.
yeah,
And that's not cool.
yeah.
And of course,
That's his downside of his game. But hey, South American, what can I tell you? But
yeah,
whoever that twat was who kicked Ramsdale in the back, I'm glad he's going to get a lifetime ban, and they should find out who he is and like fine him or something. Do something else as well.
you sure they're not going to give him season tickets?
No, I don't think so.
Force him to watch every Tottenham game the rest of the year.
But that was a good kick. I mean, probably the best kick of the day.
That he didn't fall and bust his ass is kind of surprising
Yeah,
and a shame at the same time.
yeah. Sign him up,
But
maybe.
but it'll be interesting to see if the FA has anything to say about, or the Premier League has anything to say about Richarlison's actions at the end of the match. Interestingly enough, when it comes to the statistic department, the second half, your play in the second half you actually had more shots than Arsenal did.
Yeah,
You have it set 17 shots to 14 for Arsenal. So Arsenal had 7 shots in each half. You had 13 shots in the second half. Shots on target, you had 7 shots on target. Ramsdale had 7 saves. Again, great performance. Arsenal had 5 shots on target. So you had more shots on target. You actually even had more XG. You had 1.9 XG to Arsenal's 1.8 XG. And your play in the second half also gave you the lead in possession. In the first half, Arsenal had 56% possession, but you had enough possession in the second half to flip it. So for the game, Tottenham had 51% possession. Which again
but we didn't have 3 goals, so
yeah, that's right. That's right. And overall, you have to give a tremendous amount of credit to the young Arsenal team for the way they played this game with the lead. You know, the what defines winners in sports is how they play with the lead. And this Arsenal team played great when they had the lead. And I think that coming out of this game, that is the big takeaway for me. And that is why I think they can and will win the title this year.
Yep, very good bet for the title. You know, for this game, it was like I was watching the Man City game, and somebody said on there, well, this gives Man United 38 points, and if Man City are on 39 points and they're in the title hunt, then Man United surely have to be. Well, I thought if we win today, that gives us 36 points. That means we're in the title hunt, right? I can well and truly say we are not in any title race hunt for sure.
Well, I mean, every media entity is going
Yeah,
to stretch it as far down to include Man United in a title race as they possibly can. In addition to the referees who are going to stretch the rules as much as they can to ensure Man United is included in a title race.
yeah. For Tottenham, I mean, losing this game, obviously, we don't want to lose to Arsenal. I mean, there's no doubt about it. No one, my phone was like pinging straight after, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but realistically, losing to Arsenal is the least of our issues right now.
Mm-hmm.
Really, as much as we don't like it, there's other fundamental issues there. It's not all doom and gloom. Um, if we continue to play like this, we will struggle to stay in the top four. But we can still make it if things go our way, and it's going to require some luck. And it's going to require other teams like Newcastle, Chelsea, and Liverpool, whatever, to take a dip in form,
Mm-hmm.
which a couple of them are already. But um, I said at the beginning of the podcast that maybe Tottenham needs a year in the wilderness, but then that contradicts my belief in Conte because he's not a year in the wilderness type of guy.
No, he's not.
That's the problem because I think he's the guy to get us out, but he's very stubborn in his ways, which is why we talked about 5-4-1 earlier in the season. Now he's on 3-4-3. He doesn't change a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right? He sticks with what he's got.
Right.
Um, so the year in the wilderness thing and rebuilding, that's not what he's here for.
Mm-hmm.
That is not why he's here. So then that creates a problem then. That
Mm-hmm.
means more of the same, right?
Right.
And he's a league guy, right? He's not a
Mm-hmm.
cup guy. So
Mm-hmm.
anybody looking saying, well, we're in the cup, we're in Champions League. Well, they don't matter. They don't matter to Conte.
Uh-huh.
That's not what he's in. He's into the league, right? And that's
Uh-huh.
where our issues are. So that's why I say somewhere along the line, there's got to be a big change, a big, big change.
Mm-hmm.
Something's going to have to give here. Something's going to have to give for sure.
Yeah. So let's go into what this match means. You just right there talked a little bit about from Tottenham's perspective. Let me give you Arsenal's perspective. Well, first of all, let's do man of the match. Odegaard would get a great shout from the way he played in the midfield, just like Thomas Partey played fantastic in the midfield. That was going to be Tottenham's challenge was um, to stop Arsenal's midfield possession and give credit to Odegaard, Zinchenko, and Partey for dominating in that space. But Ramsdale is your man of the match. I think he won the Sky man of the match, and he was such a commanding presence. And, you know, Tottenham had some good scoring opportunities, and Kane had a couple of really good shots. And you have to give Ramsdale tons of credit for stopping those. So, what does it mean? For first of all, for London, London is red,
Oh, God.
not just North London. So, listen to this. So Arsenal has beaten Tottenham twice. Arsenal has won at Chelsea, at Brentford, and at Crystal Palace. And we've beaten West Ham and Fulham at the Emirates. That's pretty much them all. It's not just North London now. It's all of London. And you can take it further and say at an 8-point lead in the Premier League, that's pretty commanding.
Yeah.
We've got my measuring stick for when you have a team in a compromised position is if the number of games that you have against them plus 3 points. If you can be over that, then you're in a commanding position on that team. And right now we have 2 games left with Man City, and we've got an 8-point gap. So we're just under that threshold. But we play them on February 15th. And if we can keep the 8-point gap until then, and we can come out of that game at the Emirates with a win, then we'll have Man City in a major headlock. So the 8-point gap is huge. We are, 14 points ahead of Tottenham now? And I think for the North London derby, Arsenal and Tottenham are 2 ships passing in the night. Arsenal is going one way, and Tottenham is going the other way. Because Arsenal has a young team. This team has not reached its peak. Arsenal is in a fantastic financial position because they almost have the stadium paid for. And in fact, KSE has gone in and bought the stadium debt. So Arsenal is paying the stadium debt to KSE at very favorable terms. So we have a young team, and we are in a great financial position, owed to the fact that we offered 95 million euro or something for Mudryk.
Yeah.
And we're well run because we didn't panic when Chelsea came in and offered a stupid amount and stupid wages.
Yeah.
He was going to play for us for 37 a week. Arsenal's well run. I mean, they're making good decisions, and they're not making panic buys. I think back to some of the panic buys that Arsenal has made, and you get those guys that don't perform on your books, like in college sports. In college, you recruit, but you can only have a certain amount on your roster. So there's a saying that it's not the ones that you don't get that kill you. It's the ones that you do get that don't pan out.
Like the Ozils.
Right. Exactly. Those are the ones that kill you. Like for Chelsea, if Mudryk may turn out to be the greatest thing since sliced bread and one of the best players in the world. But if he doesn't, he's on an 8.5-year contract, and they spend $100 million on him.
Gamble's a big gamble.
Huge. And give Arsenal all the credit in the world for being 8 points clear, knowing they need reinforcements in order to win the league, and saying we have a philosophy that is sound, and we believe in it, and it can win a championship, and they're sticking to it. And so we are in a great financial position. We have great players, and we have a great management team that has a philosophy that they're sticking to. And right now, it would be hard to envision how things could be better at London Colony.
Yeah. I'm happy for you.
Well, I'm happy for us too. And looking at Tottenham, I mean, this is transition period. You're at a
Yeah.
place
Yeah, absolutely.
where Levy has to make a decision. Do we put the hammer down and spend another 150, 200 million to try to bring in some ready-made players to prop this team up to finish fourth, or do you blow it up and get what you can for Kane, get what you can for Son, and go back to mid-table and start spending 20, $30 million on young players and try to start to build a young team and just are like, we won't be in Europe for a few years. From a financial perspective, can you afford to be in the wilderness for 2, 3, 4 years where you're not in Europe?
Yeah. Obviously, I don't know the real answer to that. My assumption would be, yeah, probably,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not just football played at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium,
Mm-hmm.
right? There's multiple revenue streams coming out of that stadium, right? From boxing, pop concerts, everything else,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, NFL. So yeah,
Right.
maybe they can, right? I don't know what the books look like,
Mm-hmm.
but that's, and we'll get into this in another show. But that's one of the questions that was asked by the Tottenham Supporters Association.
Right.
What are the long term goals? What do they look like? We don't know. You keep
Mm-hmm.
us in the dark. I mean, they don't have any legal obligation to tell us, but
Right.
um, it would be nice for people that are spending money on merchandise and going through the turnstiles to know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
We can't dictate what you do or execute on any of your objectives or whatever. That's up to them. But be nice to know what the long term objectives are.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Don't need all the details. Just, are we here for the long term? What's the story? You
Right.
know, give the
You
dog a
know,
bone. Let people know. The more you keep people in the dark, they're treating us like mushrooms, right? Keep them
mm,
in the dark and feed them every now and again. Right? You know. Um, so yeah, it's a big transition time for Tottenham right now. Do you want to take some pain and build? But it's really intricate. It's a long. We won't get this done in this podcast because again, it comes back to Conte, the man at the helm.
right.
Are you in for the long haul? You won't even sign a freaking contract, so it's a moot point.
Well, if you go that direction, Conte's gone. And when I look at Tottenham now, I think back to Arsenal in the late Wenger years when they built the Emirates and how we lost Robin van Persie and gave the title to Man United for 20 million pounds. I mean, I'm like, what the hell? I mean, that was, as a fan, that was living through, that was agony. And I look at Tottenham, and in all honesty, I see a lot of similarities
Sure.
between that period and what Tottenham's going through now. Because you build a stadium like that, it strains your finances. It really does,
Or and
and
you throw 2 years of COVID in.
that's right.
Holy
That's
cow!
it. That is exactly right. And Todd Bowley's out there throwing money around like he's crazy, but that won't last. When they miss Europe this year and he's spent a ton of money, and then they miss Europe next year and he fires Potter, and he's just going to say, okay, I'm going to go buy an island and do something else with my money.
Yeah, because
You know,
in American sports, you don't throw that kind of money around.
that's
Right?
right.
It's just not done. Right
That's
now,
right.
you're in football, and it's like, you want to what? Another 100 million? Okay.
That's
Hey,
right.
when does this end, man? Is there a
That
trade? Are we trading here? Is there a roster or something going on?
That's right. I guess the other owners of the Dodgers won't let him do this with the Dodgers, so maybe he's taking it out on Chelsea. But it's short lived when it doesn't turn up results. They have 34 first team players. 34, and they ain't cheap. You know, I mean, you know, they have spent 400 million pounds in the last year. Over 400 million pounds in the last year.
Yeah.
And they're in 10th.
Yeah.
So that's not viable either. Um,
Ah, but
fortunately,
what they're doing is that admittedly a lot of money being thrown around, and it remains to be seen. But they do have Graham Potter, who is rebuilding a team.
well, he's trying to, but
That's
like
what I mean. He's trying to. So there's a transition point there for Chelsea, right? Again, it boils down to, will Todd Bowley treat Graham Potter the way that Arteta has been treated at Arsenal?
well, and that is the point that I was going to make is, number one, the players that Bowley has brought in aren't. I mean, Mudryk is, but he hasn't really brought in the players to develop. He hasn't really brought in many 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds that are going to that take time to develop. He's brought in Raheem Sterling. He's brought in Aubameyang. He's bringing in players that are more, you know, the type that you want to plug and play.
Sure.
What Arsenal did is they went for young players that were developmental projects. So I knew that they weren't going to get rid of Arteta when we finished in eighth, because they were like, make these players better. We are going to improve by organically making the players we have better. We are not going to improve solely by going out and buying new players. And Arteta is a developmental manager. His role for Man City was working with players to help them get better.
Yep.
And that's what he does with Arsenal. Saka, Martinelli, he works with them to become better players. And that's how you get better as a team, I think. And that's what Major League Baseball teams do that are successful, is you bring in young players and you coach those players to get better. And as they get better, your team gets better.
Yeah.
So
Who's up next?
it's coming up next. You're going to do us a huge favor by
Yeah.
taking down Man City.
Twice.
That is exactly right. I have gone from being as big an anti-Spurs fan as I could be to now all of a sudden
Yeah.
go Spurs.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think we play Thursday night, I think, is the game. I don't know, man. It's like, I know I just said that City are kind of a tad off,
Uh-huh.
um, but they've just lost a derby too. So I don't know. I don't see us winning. Gotta be
It's going to
honest.
be a hard game.
Yeah, I don't see us winning it. I just don't at this
Well,
point.
it's going to be hard, but let's get into the 4-5-1. Let's be defensively solid. And let's see if we can hit them with a goal or two on the break.
Yeah, I know. I know that in the past we've been the kind of jinx team for City,
Yes, you have.
but
Long may it continue.
yeah, but we're not the same team, right? We are not the same team, Cal.
You weren't today.
So, um, I think I've said this before. Let's see what Tottenham team turns up. Okay. Look, can we beat them? Of course we can. Yeah. Because regardless of what happened today, there is a great team there at Tottenham waiting to get out. It's waiting to connect and gel, just like Arsenal, just like Man U, just like Newcastle is right now. Right?
There's some great players there.
It's just not working right now.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's who turns up Thursday night?
That's right. And if y'all will do us a solid on Thursday night, we'll do you a solid on Sunday and beat Man United.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good. That would be
So
great.
you do us a solid, we'll do you a solid.
Yeah,
Man United's coming in playing about as good as any team
yeah.
in the league,
Rashford's
not
on
named
fire.
Arsenal.
Rashford's on fire.
He is. He scores even when he doesn't touch the ball.
Yeah, that was
Or
offside.
creates, or I should say, creates goals when he
Uh,
doesn't even touch the
yeah,
ball.
that was. I was watching that game. That's offside, man. I mean, that's like, you could beat this one to death. It's not a goal.
Well, that's only a goal at Old Trafford. Let's put it
Yeah,
that way.
cool. That's exactly. That's only a goal, just like it's Old Trafford time when Ferguson was there, right?
That's right.
What time we
That's
got?
right.
What time we got? Fourth official. You got plenty of time, Alex. Thank
That's
you.
right.
You know,
Old Trafford's the only stadium in the league where the referee's headset actually goes to Alex Ferguson.
yeah, absolutely. That's a goal, you bastards. No.
Oh, that's right. So it should be a fantastic match at the Emirates.
Yeah,
Arsenal's only
yeah, well,
loss this year was to Man United. So an opportunity for Arsenal to avenge that loss, an opportunity for Arsenal to solidify their spot in the table in first place. So that should be a fantastic match as well. Any last words?
oh my gosh, tough day, man. Um, but it's only football, Cal.
That's exactly right.
It's
Hey,
only
you're
football.
you're going to go see 2 games tonight.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we love it, but what the hell? You know.
That's right.
On to City now. Just move
Yeah.
on.
And on to United. Come on, you Gunners.
Come on, Spurs.
North London is red.